I recently rode my 100th roller coaster, and while among enthusiasts that's not a particularly large number, it still feels like a milestone to celebrate. I can't think of a better way than to go through my 111 credits and pick out my top 20 roller coasters. Making this list was difficult because there have only been a handful of coasters I've ridden that I didn't like or hated, or that didn't provide me with great memories and a goofy smile on my face. Still, I was largely able to set aside the nostalgia factor and focus on coasters that impressed me with their layout, forces, and consistency. I'll revisit this list each time I hit increments of 50 credits, so we'll see how my top 20 changes when I hit 150, 200, and so on. I doubt I'll ever reach 976 credits the way one enthusiast I met at Kings Island has, but who knows? Now let's get to those coasters. At number 20, I have Cornball Express at Indiana Beach. This is the star of Indiana Beach's coaster lineup, with Lost Coaster of Superstition Mountain nipping at its heels. This delivers some crazy airtime while traveling through and under the park's other big woody, Hoosier Hurricane. Number 19 is Zippin' Pippin at Bay Beach in Green Bay, Wisconsin. This is absolutely worth making the trip to Green Bay for. This is a replica of Elvis Presley's favorite coaster, and it packs a mean punch in its final moments. At number 18, I have Renegade at Valley Fair. This one is a bit rough to marathon, but it is loaded with airtime and laterals. Wild Thing looks impressive, but this is Valley Fair's most intense coaster, and it's not close. Number 17 is Thunder Striker at Carowinds. This B&M Hyper lacks a standout moment, and its floater airtime is on the milder side, but I still had a blast riding it multiple times. It holds its own in a park that features a B&M Giga that we'll get to later. At number 16, I have American Eagle, but just the red side. For those of you who don't know, American Eagle is a racing coaster where the two sides actually have slightly different layouts. I'm excited to see American Eagle racing again for its 50th anniversary, and my priority on my upcoming visit is to ride both sides. Still, there's no contest between which side gives the better ride. It's red unless you're a straight track enthusiast. Number 15 is Monster at Adventureland in Altoona, Iowa. At one time, this was the best coaster in Iowa. That may not be the case after my next visit to Lost Island. Fire Runner could easily displace this one, but my rides on Monster in 2020 were stunning. A well-rounded ride that does so much more than you'd expect from a coaster with such a small footprint. My 14th favorite coaster is Legend at Holiday World. Laterals are typically the least interesting aspect of a ride for me, but the force at which Legend pins you to your seat, repeatedly combining bank turns with deep dives, had me coming back for re-rides all day. At number 13, I have Afterburn at Carowinds. My list of ridden B&M inverts is so far not impressive. 2 Batman clones and 2 custom layouts. I originally had Banshee here, but the extra whip Afterburn delivers throughout its course left a bigger impression on me. At number 12, I have the Beast at Kings Island, and it's a ride you either love because of its setting and size or hate because of its lack of forces. I definitely fall into the former category. At number 11, I have Viper at Six Flags Great America. This one is a bit of a nostalgic favorite, and an exception to when I said I mostly avoided nostalgia for this list. But it earns a place here for the ride it delivers in either the front row or the second to last row. This coaster is fickle, and I've had some rough and or boring rides on it, but the great ones that I get more often than not are why this is always a priority when I visit Great America. Now that we are entering the top 10, let's begin with Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast at Six Flags St. Louis, or Enchanted Parks over Mid-America, or Enchanted Park St. Louis, or whatever they're going to end up calling it. I don't know if or what this coaster will be renamed now that this park is no longer owned by Six Flags, but it's the ride experience that counts. The backwards launch, the upside-down top hat, and that vertical spike before you go back through the course forward are some of the most intense elements I've experienced. It's short, but not so short that it feels incomplete the way Max Force does. Sorry, Max Force. At number 9, I have Wind Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom, and look, I love the new theming in the Discovery Meadow section of Kentucky Kingdom, but Storm Chaser was a much more appropriate name for this coaster. You definitely feel like you've been picked up and thrown around by a tornado by the time you reach the brake run. Some of the most violent airtime I've ever experienced can be found here, and it's arguably not even the most intense airtime in the park. At number 8, I have Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. I've heard this ride can be hit or miss, but when I rode it last September, it was running great, tearing through its junkyard-themed course and delivering excellent hang time. At number 7, I have Raging Bull at Six Flags Great America. This is the best coaster at my home park, and I don't think anything Great America has added since comes anywhere close to dethroning it. I love the airtime in the back row, and I love the twister layout. I even rode this in 20-degree weather with single-digit wind chills once during Holiday in the Park in 2019, and that's an experience I'll never forget. Between Raging Bull and Viper, I sometimes spend an entire visit to Great America just getting re-rides in the Southwest Territory section of the park. At number 6, I have Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. Take Thunder Striker's layout, crank up the airtime, and make it a wood coaster, and that's essentially what you get with Shivering Timbers. I haven't been on this since 2022, when I rode it 10 times over the course of 2 80-degree days, so I can't comment on if the jackhammering on the second airtime hill has gotten worse, or if the ride is getting rough in other parts of its course. At the time, I found the roughness fairly mild, and not enough to keep me from marathoning it. Kicking off my top 5, we have Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. This is a coaster I cannot marathon due to how forcefully the airtime slams my thighs into the restraints. But this ride exceeded the hype for me in every way. You are out of your seat for pretty much the entire ride after cresting the lift hill. Your butt barely has time to make contact with the seat again before the next element throws you up and forward again. It baffles me that more parks don't have one of these because it's so much more thrilling than many bigger, flashier coasters that cost a lot more money to build. At number 4, I have Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. Maybe it's because snakes are also a hyperfixation of mine, but I love terrain coasters that make you feel like you're slithering quickly through the forest. This is shockingly smooth for a wooden coaster, and it is so well maintained. At number 3, I have Diamondback at Kings Island. I made this my 100th coaster, and I'm glad I did. In addition to the serpent theming, it delivers everything I could want from a hyper. Speed, an airtime-filled course, a few twister elements, and that splashdown finale. It does everything that Thunder Striker and Raging Bull do well, but improves upon them in every way. At number 2, I have Fury 325 at Carowinds. This is the best steel coaster I've experienced, and it's going to be hard to beat. It delivers a long, fast, and forceful ride with some unique elements, and while it doesn't influence my ranking, I think this is probably the best color scheme on any coaster. Edging out Fury 325, albeit by just a little bit, is Voyage at Holiday World. I kicked off my first visit to the park with this ride, in the back row, and no coaster experience before or since has left me as blown away and speechless as that ride. Was it a little rough? Yes. But it's also one of the most forceful coasters and absolutely the most well-rounded coaster I've ever been on. I actually think it delivers better rides in the front row, or closer to the front row, than in the back, providing the same intense airtime and laterals while not being as rough. This ride is massive, thrilling, and exhausting. If I had to pick only one coaster to ride the rest of my life, it would be this one.